Okay. Okay, today is the third session of the Physical Harmony Seminar, and we'll be discussing today dietary habits and dietary guidelines. Now, I'm not a very fanatical person when it comes to diet. I believe that there are as many dietary systems as there are persons, just as there are as many paths as there are persons. But I think there is some basic information that would be useful to all persons in their effort to create a healthy diet for themselves. So we'll be giving some basic guidelines today, but each person will then, upon that, find his own details. First of all, we must realize that our physical body is created by the substances that we put into it. So that if we want to build a building here, and we put less cement and more sand, that building is going to be weak. So the very structure of our physical body, the strength of our physical body, and the strength of our nervous system is dependent on the types of nutrients which we put into the body, whether they are the nutrients which we need, and on the other hand, whether there are nutrients which are toxic. So there's two factors here, whether we're getting the nutrients which we need, and on the other hand, whether we are avoiding toxic substances which poison to some extent the physical body and the nervous system. The second point, which is very important, is that our energy body is also nourished by the food that we eat. And when we eat food which is not alive, when we eat heavily processed foods which have been cooked for long periods of time or left for a number of days, then that dead food creates, in a way, a dead energy body. So we're interested in physical nourishment, the nourishment of the physical body, the cells, and secondly, the nourishment of the energy body. On the third level, the mind is also nourished by the food, and each food has its own vibrations. And that is why all religious systems suggest abstinence from meat before the religious holidays, before the liturgies which have the greatest spiritual significance. Whatever religion you may belong to, they will suggest that you abstain from meat just before those rituals. Because there are certain substances which develop a higher spiritual state, and other substances which lessen that spiritual sensitivity. So we're looking for a diet which nourishes us physically, energy-wise, mentally, and spiritually. So each food has those four levels: physical, energy, mental, and spiritual. And we want to take all of that into consideration in creating a healthy diet for ourselves. Now, there are some factors which we would like to take into consideration in creating, in discovering our own optimum diet. One is the metabolism of the body. Some persons have a high metabolism and can therefore consume larger portions of food and larger portions of fats or sugars or carbohydrates than other persons whose metabolism is low. So if we see someone next to us eating large portions of food and they have no problem with that, that doesn't mean that we can do the same. We have our own sensitivities and our own metabolism. The second is our gender, our sex. There are certain substances such as iron and calcium which women need more of, and certain vitamins which men need more of. So a woman and a man may not have the same optimal diet. Then we have the age of a person. As the body ages, its needs may change. It may have less need for proteins, less need for calcium as the body stops growing. Thirdly, it's the type of activity. Most of us live a sedentary life, and we have less need for large portions of carbohydrates. So whether I live an active life or a sedentary life will also be a factor which I will want to consider in creating an optimum diet. Another factor is the environment in which I live. Now there is a hypothesis among the advocates of natural eating that each environment in its own wisdom offers to each person that which he needs from that specific environment. And a rule of thumb is that I will eat whatever comes from a radius of 500 miles or of the area from the area where I live. That I won't be eating things which are coming from South Africa or from North America or from Alaska. That I'll be eating substances which are produced in this climate and in this season. Now there are certain foods which can be stored without losing their value, such as legumes, beans, nuts, grains, which we can eat all year long. But there are other substances, other food substances, which will gradually deteriorate. So at this point of time, we wouldn't be eating watermelons, because watermelons are not coming out of the earth at this time. Or papayas, because there are no papaya trees in Greece. So the idea is that I will eat in each season and in each place those foods which are offered to me from nature at that time. And this is also the most cheap way of eating, because those foods which are in the height of their productivity of their season are always the foods which are cheapest. So there's sort of a rule of thumb that each season offers to us. Now it's offering to us cabbage and cauliflower and broccoli and carrots and beets. Another time it's offering grapes or watermelons. So each season has its way of offering to us the foods which are best to keep our body healthy at that time. Another factor to take into consideration is the goals that we have in life. That is, if I have social goals or professional goals or spiritual goals or material goals, that each type of food has a way of developing that certain aspect. So a person that wants spiritual development may have to confront the idea of reducing or eliminating quantities of meat in his diet. Another person who wants to develop an aggressive type of body, an aggressive type of psychosynthesis, may want to eat more meat. So depending on the goals of that person in life, he may have to adjust his diet. Concerning meat, a rule of thumb that I use for myself, which doesn't mean that you have to use it, is that I will eat whatever I can obtain with my own hands and feel good about that. I could not kill a cow or a sheep or a chicken or a fish, but I can, without feeling very badly about it, take a carrot out of the earth or an apple off a tree or cut a head of lettuce. I'm killing something, but my senses are not sensitive enough to feel the pain of the lettuce or the carrot. But my sensitivity is high enough that I could not do that to the sheep or the cow, because I would feel its reaction. I see its reaction. So at the level of sensitivity that I have at this point, I could not obtain those food substances, but I could obtain the other. So if someone feels comfortable with that, and I'm sure there are many people who do feel comfortable with that, who feel that it's in the laws of nature to kill a chicken or a fish or a cow, I would say that food substance is compatible for their body at this time. So we say it's a matter of sensitivity. If I feel squeamish about that, then it's not really right to have someone else do it and for me to eat it. So if I feel comfortable that I could do that, then eat it. So it's a good rule of thumb. I think a very simple way for each person to determine at this point in his process what is appropriate for him to eat or not to eat. Another factor is hereditary weaknesses or allergies which may exist in the body. It may be an injustice. We may feel that we've been done an injustice by the fact that we cannot eat certain foods that other people can eat. But what can we do? It's a reality, and it's something that we'll have to take into consideration in creating an optimal diet. There are a number of people who are allergic to dairy products, and they may not even know it. They may have various forms of allergic symptoms and not realize that these are from the dairy products which they cannot digest. There are also a large number of people who are allergic to wheat and even to oranges. So if someone finds that he is tired frequently, that he cannot sleep well, he has difficulty in breathing, he has digestive problems, he may want to try eliminating certain food substances for periods of time to see whether his body reacts differently. He may even want to try fasting on water for 3 or 4 days to see if those symptoms subside, and then begin to add one by one various substances and see if the body begins to take on those symptoms again. And in this way he can begin to realize what are the food substances which are creating this tiredness or this weakness or these headaches or whatever the symptoms may be that we have not been able to understand what the cause is. Now, some basic guidelines about what would be an optimal diet. We have the phrase which says that the staff of life are the grains, and each country has its own grains. Some countries are based on rice, others on wheat, others on rye, barley. So grain is the basic source of energy and nutrients for the human body. And then we have the vegetables. That is 80% of our diet should consist of grains and vegetables. Now how much is going to be grains and how much is going to be vegetables depends on the person himself, depends on the time of the year. In the winter when it's cold, we want more grains, perhaps, and less vegetables. In the summer, we may not feel that we can take grains at all. We may want just vegetables and more fruits, of course, which come out more in the summer. So basically it's grains and vegetables, and these are supplemented by fruit, nuts, and dairy. This basic diet is this: grains, vegetables, fruits, nuts. The nuts should be non-processed, without salt, and the enzyme content of the nuts is increased when we allow them to soak for 12 to 24 hours. And this energizes the enzyme content within them. So the exact proportions of these 5 basic sources, grains, when I say grains, I include beans and legumes in there altogether, beans, grains, and then vegetables, that's the basis, then fruits, nuts, and dairy products. There's another category which are the sprouts, which is a very high source of vitamins, minerals, and vital energy because they're live, which is halfway between grain and vegetable. I mean, there's still the high degree of the seed there, or the bean, but also we have the process of going towards becoming the plant. And so it's a very balanced type of food. And you can make sprouts from any kind of grains or beans. The most common, however, are the alfalfa, which is a favorite for most people, which is a very small seed. And how many of you do not know how to make sprouts, have never made sprouts? Then I'll make a short description. You take a jar, you put about 1 centimeter of alfalfa sprouts in the bottom. You add water, fill the jar with water. You let them soak for about 12 to 20 hours. You put some kind of screening on the mouth of the jar, such as mosquito netting, and then elastic band, and you turn it over and you let the water come out, but the seeds will remain in. Then you wash these seeds 3 times. You put in water and you empty it. Then you leave it upside down so that the water drains out. And then from that day on, after the first 20 hours, which you allow it to soak, we should rinse them twice a day, or if it's very hot, 3 times a day, putting water in 3 times at least and emptying it. And so that they're churned about by the movement of the water, without it being very forceful and damaging them. And then we empty out the water and we leave it upside down for the water to be drained out. Gradually these begin to grow, and after about 7 days they become about this long, and the alfalfa, we allow it to obtain the leaves to become green. We leave them in not in direct sunlight, but near light, so that they can obtain the chlorophyll. And they're ready to eat. We put them in a refrigerator and we eat them raw with salad or by themselves or in a sandwich, any way that we like. The same can be done with wheat. Wheat sprouts are also a favorite with a lot of people, but the wheat sprout takes only about 2 or 3 days, and we don't allow it to grow so much. We wait just for that white root to become to show its face out from the grain, and the moment we see that white sprout, we put it in the refrigerator and we start eating it. If you allow it to grow too much, the root system becomes a bit difficult to chew and to digest. It can be eaten, of course, but it's sweetest and most nutritious when that root just starts coming out. Then we have the mung beans, which are also a favorite, and it's which we eat when we eat Chinese food, those long bean sprouts in Chinese food. And they're green, usually green, but there are also other varieties. And they take about 3 to 5 days to develop, depending on the temperature. The hotter it is, the more rapidly they develop themselves. The process is the same with all of them. We let them soak for 8 to 20 hours, and then we rinse them daily, morning and evening, and clean them, waiting for them to develop. Once they're developed, we put them in the refrigerator, and we eat them in the way that we like. A very powerful source of vitamins, minerals, amino acids, proteins. Very important source of nutrients. Now, what are the foods that we would like to avoid? We suggest, both from the point of view of health, but also from the point of view of spiritual development, that we avoid as much as possible meat, poultry, and fish. Some people would add eggs. That's up to you. Now, the reason for the meat is that it is what we consider a rajasic type of food which creates a hyperactivity of the nervous system and aggressive instincts in the person that eats them. On the other hand, from the health point of view, there are a lot of toxins. Meat today is grown with antibiotics, with hormones, and all of these hormones and antibiotics which are fed into these animals is stored up in their muscles and then eaten by us and accumulates in our body. There are also a number of theories that man is not a carnivorous being, according to the formation of his teeth, according to the length of his intestines and certain enzymes which are missing from his digestive system, that he was not born to be a carnivore. Of course, he has become one, sure enough. From there on, everyone will have to make their own choice. At Harmonic Israel, we have no rules on these kinds of things. We just offer you information and you choose for yourselves. We'll discuss this point again next year when we discuss our diet in relationship to our meditation. Now we're just talking about health. Next year when we talk about meditation, we'll approach diet from another point of view. We would also like to avoid what we call empty calories. Empty calories are white sugar and empty carbohydrates, white flour and white rice, in which we have removed from the sugar and from the flour and from the rice the outer coverings which contain various vitamins and minerals which are essential for the proper absorption and the proper usage of those sugar and carbohydrate substances. What happens when we eat large quantities of white rice, white sugar, and white flour? Because we are not taking in those vitamins and minerals with those substances, it has to take them from the body. And our body becomes gradually depleted, especially in vitamin B and certain minerals. And so the nervous system is weakened. That is, the direct result is on the nervous system. And we have seen in studies, in scientific studies, that children with hyperactivity, or adolescents in reformatory schools, when the amount of sugar intake was lessened and when they were given dosages of vitamin B, their behavior improved considerably. And hyperactive children became much more relaxed when the amount of sugar, empty sugar, that they were taking in was reduced. So we want to avoid white sugar. We can replace it with honey, with molasses, and we have some substances here in the Mediterranean which are not known perhaps in the West. The petemezi, the syrup which is made from the grapes, or the harapomelo, which is made from the carob bean. These are all direct sources of sweetness, because all of nature loves sweet things. But we have not removed the basic vitamins and minerals which are necessary for the proper usage. In general, however, it's not good to take large quantities of sugar. It's better to take it through fruit or dried fruits. We can get the calories which we need. Often people get into a vicious circle with easy energy. Sugar is easy energy, and chocolates are easy energy. And what happens is that we get this dose of energy which lasts about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then we're down again, and we need our second dose and our third dose. And we get addicted. It's an addictive process. An example would be that burning sugar is like burning a piece of paper. It gives you a lot of flame, but then it's gone after a few minutes. And burning grains, taking our sugar from grains and beans, which have carbohydrates, and those carbohydrates are gradually transformed into sugar through our liver and through our bloodstream, in our bloodstream. It's like burning a log, which has a lesser flame, but lasts for a longer period of time. That is, a meal with grains gives us a supply of sugar for 4 to 5 hours, whereas a candy bar gives us for about 15 minutes. So we want to, if we find that we're caught up into that cycle, we may want to begin to start eating more grains and less sweets. We also want to avoid packaged and canned foods, which we call tamasic foods, foods which are lacking in energy. Through the great deal of processing, we have taken the prana, the vital energy, out of these. If we go to a market and we see carrots, that if we pick them up, they go like this, we're not going to buy them, because it's very obvious that that carrot or that lettuce doesn't have any energy in it anymore. The calorie content is the same. The mineral content will be the same, but the energy content is not the same. So our senses do not allow us to buy that carrot or that piece of lettuce, because we're not looking only for vitamins and minerals and carbohydrates and proteins. We're looking also for energy. And in a way, we absorb the energy body of the food that we eat. We're absorbing its physical body, we're also absorbing its energy body. And also from the point of enzymes, there are about 500 functions in the body which take place through enzymes. And one of them is digesting, and another of them is protecting the body from foreign bodies. That is, the immune system works through enzymes. Enzymes eat those foreign substances which come into the body, just as it eats the food that we put into our body. So a person who eats only cooked foods or processed foods and doesn't eat enough live food is not taking enzymes in with his food, and so he has to use the enzymes which are in his body. And that caused the enzyme content to become depleted and his immune system to become weakened. So a person who eats more live food has a higher enzyme content and a more powerful immune system. One of the first things that we suggest to persons who have problems with cancerous cells or with any kind of weak immune situation is to eat exclusively raw foods for a period of time. And so our grains we would not cook, but we would turn them into sprouts. And as much as possible eating live raw food. So it's in a country like Greece, it's just not necessary to eat packaged or canned foods. I mean, we have an abundant supply of fresh, live foods all year long. It's a blessed country from that point of view. So there's really no need for that. The other thing that we would like to avoid are the stimulants of the nervous system, such as coffee, tea, alcohol, and cigarettes. All of these stimulate the nervous system in ways in which we don't realize after a period of time, because our body becomes used to them. It loses its sensitivity. If anyone remembers the first time he smoked a cigarette, it wasn't pleasant. The first time he may have drank an alcoholic beverage, it probably wasn't pleasant, because the body reacted. It didn't want that substance. But with the repetition, the body became desensitized and doesn't react anymore. I remember the first time when I returned to the States some years ago and had a few cups of coffee with the family after about 10 years of not having had a cup of coffee. I just felt my blood soaring through my veins, and I had forgotten that my body had become highly sensitized again from the state in which it was before, and I was really surprised by the effect of this relatively harmless substance. At least it was harmless to me at the time that I was drinking it regularly. How powerful it was. We don't realize how powerful these substances are, because our body has, fortunately and unfortunately, the ability to adapt. That's fortunate for our ability to function, unfortunate because then we can get quite off the path. And that way, we mentioned last week how physical weaknesses are a blessing from the point of spiritual evolution, because they prevent us from being able to get very far away from the laws of nature. Then we come to the subject of drugs and tranquilizers and painkillers and these kinds of substances, which also deaden and weaken the nervous system, and of course do not solve problems. They only cover up problems, and they just make us imagine that the problems don't exist, which is an obstacle also from the point of view that we don't have any more the initiative to look at the problem and try to heal it, because we just cover it up. And every time I have a headache, I cover that headache up with a painkiller. Then I'm not going to have the motive to discover the cause of the headache and to get to the root of the matter. And then I don't have the motive for evolution, because pain is very frequently the only motive that we have for evolution, because we're not just crazy about evolution yet. It's something that's there in our minds, but if we don't suffer, we often just sort of take the easy path. So as much as possible, it would be good to avoid these kinds of easy solutions. Then we come to the subject of oil, and you can find a lot of theories about whether we should eat olive oil or sunflower oil or safflower oil, and everyone has their own theories on this kinds of peanut oil. I'm not an expert on this. I would just say that oils with time and with heat are destroyed and become destructive to the body, so that any kind of oil should not be heated and eaten. It should be added to the food after we have prepared the food, because heating increases the number of free radicals which are created, which move about in the body. These free radicals then attack the cells, and these free radicals then destroy the cells. Enzymes protect the cells from these free radicals which are created in the body, and there are 3 vitamins which aid the enzymes in this process. One is vitamin C, the other is vitamin E, the other is vitamin A. These 3 vitamins are known to protect the integrity of the cells of the body. It's interesting that the companies which produce enzymes for persons to take who have problem with enzymes, those such as superdioxide dismutase, which is a very important enzyme for the protection of the cells from cancer and various other kinds of debilitating illnesses which are the result of debilitation of the cells, produce them from wheat sprouts. So wheat sprouts is a very powerful source of power for the immune system. So anyone that wants to create a very healthy immune system can eat a handful of wheat sprouts every day, and it's getting a lot of enzymes into the body. Another system is called Rejuvelac, in which we allow these wheat sprouts to stay in water for about 24 hours and then drink that water in which the enzymes have been developed. So we want to avoid eating cooked oils. Of course, we also want to avoid large quantities of salt. There should be a very minimal amount of salt in our diet because that also attacks the cells. Very briefly, those are some basic guidelines. Each of you will have to discover your own details, what is best for you. I have given you a sheet for an analysis of your dietary habits. It's the page which is numbered 8, page number 8 of the various sheets that you have. And if you want, it would be useful, I think, to fill this out and observe how you feel after each meal for about a month, observing what you eat, and observing the combinations of food. Now, that's the next point, that is combining foods. There are some basic theories about this. I am not a fanatical follower of food combinations, but I do observe two rules of food combination. The one is not to eat fruit after the meal, and that is because each food substance has a different period of time for digestion. So some foods, such as grains and beans, take about 4 hours to be digested. Fruits take about a half an hour. When I put that food on top of the grains and the cheese and whatever else we have eaten there, it has to wait for 4 hours. And as it's waiting there, it becomes over-digested and begins to create toxic substances and gas. So one rule is to eat fruit before the meal or after about 3 hours or 4 hours after the meal, but not with or directly after the meal. I know that this is a habit in many countries, to eat directly after the meal. And if you don't have any problem, then go ahead. But if you find that you have gas, if you're having difficulty, if you have a tension or a nervous system which is weak or in a state of tension, then think about that. Try it out. And the other is to avoid as much as possible adding lemon or citric or acid to carbohydrates, because carbohydrates require an alkaline environment for that digestion. And proteins create an acidic environment, require an acidic environment. So we want to avoid, especially if we have a sensitive digestive system, adding lemon, for example, to rice or to beans. Now, I don't always follow that because I have a strong digestive system. But persons who have a weak digestive system or have a sensitive nervous system may try avoiding that. There are also many more details concerning not combining carbohydrates with proteins and these kinds of things, which I have never followed very much because I have never felt the need to. But anyone here who has a problem with his health and thinks and realizes that food is contributing to that, you may want to study more deeply proper combinations of food. Now, the second aspect is the procuring and the preparation of the food. As much as possible, we want to purchase our food from a shop which has good vibrations, in which we feel pleasant, there is a pleasant atmosphere, the person who is selling them and the person who is handling those foods. But more important than the person who sells us the food is the person who cooks the food and the vibrations that he has. Now, in the old days, the preparation of food was a liturgy. It was a spiritual process. And in India, the process for the Brahmin families is for the woman or the man, whoever is cooking, to take a shower, to make certain prayers, and to continue those prayers and chanting, either silently or verbally, throughout the whole process of cooking, and never to taste that which is being made. The process of just being totally focused on what I'm doing. That is, I'm putting all of my positive energy and all of my love and all of my concentration into the creation of this food. Because when we're eating that food, we're also eating, in a sense, the vibrations of the person who has prepared it. Now I realize that in this time and in this age, that people don't give much attention to that. And it's just get the food together as quickly as possible, throw it on the table, or just grab a sandwich on the road and eat it. Perhaps this may not be so important to some people. It may not affect you so much, but it may be affecting you to a great deal. And if someone is going to cook, since he's going to be doing it anyway, why not enjoy that and see that as a spiritual offering, as a love offering to those who will be eating that food, even if he's the only one that's going to be eating it, even if he's just preparing it for himself. So it's good for that to be a form of meditation, the preparation of the food. Then we have, almost even more important than the vibration of the person who's preparing the food, is the vibration of the person who's eating the food. So I can be the most fanatical health nut in the world and eat only pure foods, but if I'm in a state of continual tension and anger when I'm eating, or fear, then I'm just going to be putting all that into what I'm eating. So much more important even than the food that I'm eating is the state of mind with which I eat. So it is important at the table for us not to discuss problems. Often at the family table is the only time that we find together, we discuss the problems that we have between each other, and then the stomach begins to get tied up and we're putting this food in, and all of this turns into poison. The healthy food that we've been created becomes poisonous in our body. It is also the reason why it's good to pray, or at least take a moment of silence before eating. There's a very beautiful passage from the Bhagavad Gita in which it says that the food which I'm eating is God, the fire which digests it is God, I am God who is eating that, and the whole process is God. And it's just seeing God in the food, seeing God in myself, seeing God in the process of eating. One thing that I discovered at one time in focusing on the food was that what I do is to sit and close my eyes, and I focus on the food, and I focus first on this physical body. There's a physical body. It's rice, it's carrots, it's lettuce, whatever it is. And then I focus on the energy body, which is behind that, and then on the consciousness, which is behind that energy body, because that physical body is a result of an energy body, which is a result of a consciousness. There is a carrot consciousness. There is a rice consciousness, an archetype at a spiritual level, which is manifesting itself as an energy field, and that energy field is becoming a physical field, which is the body which I'm eating. And then I focus on myself as a physical body, as an energy body, as a consciousness. And then I imagine the unity, the union of that physical body with my physical body, that energy body with my energy body, and that consciousness with my consciousness. And if there are other people at the table, I imagine the same thing with them, that I'm uniting with them as an energy and as a consciousness. That's something that I found for me. You may find something else for yourselves. You may just want to say a prayer, or you may want to imagine light filling your plate, or anything that you may just want to feel gratitude, or you may want to take 10 deep breaths. Whatever is most comfortable to you. But that pause before you begin eating, and a feeling of gratefulness and an awareness of what I'm about to do. I'm about to take this offering, which is not to be taken for granted. I mean, it's not only through my hard work that I have that food in front of me, because lots of people who don't even have the opportunity to work hard, they may never have the opportunity. And even if they work hard, they don't have food. It's not just my work which is creating that food. It is a blessing. It is something which has been given to me, which is not being given at this moment to millions of others. Whatever they may do, however hard they may want to work, they are not being given that opportunity. And today, 40,000 children have died because there's not enough food. And tomorrow, another 40,000 will die. And on Thursday, another 40,000 will die because there's not enough food. So it's not to be taken for granted. It is an offering which has been given to us. We may have worked for it, but there is another factor involved there. And so it is important to think about that, or to stop, or to relax, whatever it may be, before we take that food into our bodies. Now the question of drinking with the meal, there is a theory that drinking at least large amounts will dilute the digestive process, the digestive juices, and is not conducive. Some yogic systems encourage drinking some liquids with the food. I would suggest again that you must find this balance. If you find that your digestive system is not functioning strongly, you're not digesting well the food, try not drinking, but drinking a glass of water before the meal. Avoid salt so that you're not getting thirsty, and then drink something after about 3 or 4 hours, but not with the meal. After the meal, I would suggest light activity. I would not suggest either heavy activity nor immediately to lie down, but for half an hour to an hour, a walk, sweeping the floor, washing the dishes, singing a song, speaking with someone, playing music, some kind of light activity which helps the digestive process. Too much activity will take blood away from the stomach. Lying down and sleeping will do the same, will stop the digestive process. We need light activity. So that very briefly are the guidelines which I would suggest to you concerning the eating process. I would suggest that from here on in that you work with that questionnaire and that you begin to discover what is best for you and what gives you energy. I would just repeat, the basic guidelines are eat as much live food as possible. We must remember that what we are actually eating is sunlight. There is no other source of energy than sunlight. Sunlight is taken by the leaves of the plant, and the photons are used to combine water and carbon dioxide to create sugar, and then carbohydrates, and then fats and proteins. So all of that energy which is then released in our body is that we take that sugar and that carbohydrate into our body and we break that bond. That's called metabolism. We break that bond and we release that light energy from the sun, and we use that in various forms, as nerve energy, as heat energy, as thinking energy, as movement. And so all of the energy comes from the sun, and the first source then is the plants. Meat would be a secondary source in which the plant is eaten, and then we take it from there. So the basic source is live plants. That's light energy contained in that area. Any questions about the process of eating and these basic dietary guidelines? First.
I just have a small question. In a lot of health food shops, you can buy vitamins and just general supplements that come in a pill form, which is not very natural, but it is in a health shop. I was wondering if you had any...
Okay, it's in a health shop. My stance is that it would be best for us to live without vitamin supplements and mineral supplements. However, it is frequent that I would suggest it to someone whose health has deteriorated as a form of medicine, as a way of getting themselves back into balance. And once they're in balance, to stop again. Now, some of them, which have low dosages of vitamins, are probably quite natural, from natural sources. Wherever we see high dosages, we can be fairly sure that they're probably synthetic. But I would even suggest in some cases synthetic vitamins, if I believe that that will strengthen the nervous system of the person for a period of time so that he can get back on his feet and then stop again. I'm not very fanatical about that. So, in general, I don't suggest that persons live on vitamins or mineral supplements. But in special cases which is a problem, to use it as a healing process only. Any other questions?
What about fasting?
Fasting we're going to talk about next week. We'll spend the whole next session on fasting. Any other questions? Okay, I have that we can close the various instruments. Because there are a few people who want to participate in a class which begins